All right, today we're tackling something that is an absolute game changer for UK education. We're talking about the brand new government AI safety standards. Now, if you're a school leader, a teacher, anyone involved in EdTech, you need to listen up. The rulebook for AI in our schools has literally just been rewritten, and we're going to break down exactly what it means for you.
So let's just start with a big question, the one that's probably been on your mind for a while now. You see all the incredible things AI can do, but how can you be totally sure that the tools you're bringing into your school are safe, ethical, and, actually effective for your students? It's a massive responsibility, right? And the stakes really couldn't be any higher.
For the past few years, the hype around AI has been absolutely electric, but it's also come with this huge cloud of uncertainty. The tech has been moving at lightning speed, while the safety guidelines, well, they just weren't there. That ambiguity, that gray area, it's officially over. The government has finally dropped a clear framework, and it is time for all of us to get up to speed.
Okay, so here's how we're going to break this all down. First, we'll look at the big challenge schools are facing. Then, we'll get into the three main pillars of these new standards: protecting student development, mandating digital safeguarding, and demanding vendor accountability. And to wrap it all up, we'll give you the key questions you absolutely have to ask before you buy any new AI tool.
So what the government is trying to do here is create a really clear national baseline for what good AI looks like in a school setting. I want you to think of these standards as a practical checklist, something designed to turn that feeling of uncertainty we talked about into a clear roadmap for adopting AI safely and effectively. It's all about giving you the confidence to innovate without compromising on safety. So what are these standards, really? Well, officially, they're a set of capabilities and features that AI products must have to be considered safe for schools in England. And here's the key part. While they're written for developers, they're also an absolutely essential assessment tool for you. In other words, you now have the power to hold vendors to a much, much higher standard.
Okay, let's get into the first, and I'd argue the most important pillar: protecting student development. This is all about safeguarding the cognitive, emotional, and mental well-being of the learner. It's making sure that AI is a powerful support for learning, not a shortcut that replaces critical thinking, or, and this is so important, that vital human connection.
A huge risk the government is focused on is something called cognitive offloading. This is exactly what it sounds like. It's when a student, instead of actually wrestling with a problem, just passes the thinking work over to the AI, just asking it for the answer. Sure, it gets the task done fast, but it completely bypasses the learning process. It's basically the 21st century version of copying someone else's homework.
So how do the standards actually tackle that? This is where it gets really smart. They mandate something called progressive disclosure. This means an AI tool is forbidden from just spitting out the final answer. First, it has to offer hints, then maybe some partial steps, and it must prompt the learner for their own input before it ever reveals the full solution. This keeps the student in the driver's seat. The standards are also incredibly strict about preventing students from forming unhealthy emotional attachments to AI. The rules are clear. AI must avoid using language like "I think" or "I feel." It can't create little characters or personas, and it absolutely cannot offer emotional validation. Why? Because we have to reinforce that AI is a tool, not a friend. For real support, students must always be pointed towards a trusted human. And this all builds to a critical point on safety. AI must now plug directly into your school's safeguarding ecosystem. The standards demand a clear three-step escalation pathway. If an AI detects signs of student distress, it has to first signpost them to helpful resources. But, and this is key, for any high-risk signals, it is now mandated to escalate that alert directly to the school's designated safeguarding lead. All right, let's move on to the second pillar, mandating digital safeguarding. This is where we get into the technical nuts and bolts, the non-negotiable protections that have to be built into any AI product. Think of it as building a digital fortress around your students. These standards require some serious safety filtering. It can't be an add-on, it has to be baked right into the product. It needs to be smart enough to adjust for age and for students with special educational needs and disabilities. And it has to work everywhere, even on a student's own phone. So here's the bottom line for you. If a vendor gets vague or can't clearly explain their filtering architecture, that is a massive red flag. And here is a hugely important point on data and intellectual property. The standards are crystal clear.
AI tools are not allowed to use student essays, teacher lesson plans, or anything else created by your school community to train their commercial AI models without getting explicit permission first. Let me just say that again. Your school's data is not free training material for big tech.
This brings us perfectly to our third and final pillar, demanding vendor accountability. The days of AI being a mysterious black box are over. The new message to suppliers is simple, it's direct, and I love it. If you can't explain how your product works and prove that it's safe, you can't sell it to our schools, period. This means vendors are now required to be totally transparent. They have to show you their risk assessments. They have to make their safety policies public. They have to have a real complaints process. And this one's huge. They need to provide actual evidence to back up all the wild marketing claims they make. No more smoke and mirrors. It's about proof, not promises.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground. What does this all mean for you in practice when you're actually thinking about buying a tool? Well, let's turn all this information into your new procurement checklist. These are the questions you can now take directly to any AI vendor, and you should demand clear, detailed answers.
Here they are, 6 essential, non-negotiable questions. You start with the big one. How, specifically, do you meet these new UK standards? Then you drill down. Cognitive offloading, safeguarding escalation, transparency, data protection, and SEND adaptation. Honestly, their answers, or maybe their lack of answers, will tell you everything you need to know about whether they're a partner you can actually trust with your students.
Let's be absolutely clear. This isn't a nice-to-have list or some optional gold standard. For any AI tool to even be considered for use in a school in England, compliance with this entire framework is the new absolute non-negotiable baseline.
And I want to leave you with this idea, because it really gets to the heart of what these rules are all about. AI that gives hints instead of answers isn't limiting students, it's empowering them. This whole framework isn't about holding back technology, it's about shaping it, guiding it, to make sure it serves our ultimate goal, helping every student learn, think for themselves, and thrive in a safe environment.